Good evening. Let's get right to breaking news at 5. And a person that has been found dead in the gorge. This is in the Angels Rest Trail area that is east from Bridal Veil Falls. Multnomah County deputies say the body is at the bottom of a cliff and in a spot that is difficult to access. The sheriff's office search and rescue team is attempting a recovery. No official word on what happened there, but today's news comes just 5 days after a hiker died after falling 100 feet from a trail near the top of Multnomah Falls. We'll update you here and at KGW.com as we learn more.
Back inside and I was crying and I told my dad who was there, I was like, I think I just saw someone die.
A neighbor reacts to a deadly shooting in McMinnville. It began with a call about a man who was suicidal, police say, and then ended with an officer shooting him. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Mulco. And some 24 hours after at least one shot was fired, we're starting to get some clarity over what may have led an officer to pull the trigger. Tim Gordon is in McMinnville. Tim, let's start with the man who was killed. What do we know?
Well, David, we know his name now. Police have identified the man as 69-year-old Lawrence Dixon. And we're told that he lived in an apartment on the second floor of that building across the street from us, and he died right outside of it. A police call for a suicidal man. Witnesses say officers arrived to find the man armed with a handgun. Then they heard a gunshot. Shortly after that, they saw officers performing CPR on the man on the sidewalk. Haley Paul's girlfriend heard the gunfire from inside Paul's apartment.
So I went out my back door and it was right there. There were 4 officers with shields, kind of in a triangle, and they walked over and kicked a handgun away from him and then turned him over.
Oregon State Police are in charge of figuring out what happened. Their preliminary investigation indicates that at least one round was fired by McMinnville officers, striking the man, now identified as 69-year-old Lawrence Dixon. Paul recognized Dixon as someone who recently moved into an apartment on the second floor of this building. And so this is a man that you had some exchanges with?
Yeah, a couple of times. I've run into him while I was walking my dog, and him and my dog would have a little scuff, but he was never like crazy or not lucid. Like he was a nice guy.
OSP says when McMinnville officers arrived, Dixon came out of the building and confronted them before at least one shot was fired. Haley Paul was sad to see it.
I ran back inside and I was crying and I told my dad who was there, I was like, I think I just saw someone die. And it wasn't, because, whenever they're sitting there and they're trying to do compressions, it's not good. So, and any life being lost and seeing that it wasn't fun.
2 McMinnville officers are on administrative leave. That's the normal protocol. And a multi-agency investigation led by OSP is ongoing. Back to you.
Tim Gordon reporting. Tim, appreciate your reporting tonight. To a big announcement now from President Biden, who has announced he's canceling up to $10,000 in federal student debt for some borrowers. This applies to people making less than $125,000 a year. It's been in the works for months. The president calling it a game changer. He's also pushing back on critics who fear this will make inflation, sitting near 40-year highs, even worse.
I believe my plan is responsible and fair. It focuses the benefit on middle class and working families.
Low-income Pell Grant recipients can get up to $20,000 in forgiveness, but some say this doesn't go far enough. Others, like Republican Senator Ben Sasse, call it unfair, saying it forces working-class Americans to, quote, subsidize white-collar graduates, end quote. Overall, this will affect about 45 million people. The Biden administration says lowering monthly costs for that many will bolster the economy. And we wanted to gauge the reaction to the big news here in Oregon. Here are some of the responses we got.
10,000 is not going to even make a dent in that. I think how they came up with that decision is where everybody might be questioning. Education is important, and it should be, people shouldn't be stressed out about trying to get an education.
And I don't think it really scratches the surface of the loans that I've heard friends of mine, that they've built up over years and years of work.
I think it'll help all these kids because this generation, they're not being able to buy houses, buy cars, they're renting.
A lot of perspectives there. Let's add a couple more. Some Democrats and progressives say the number should have been higher to help address racial disparities when it comes to college debt. Republicans also criticizing the plan as an insult to Americans who have already repaid their debt. It is safe to say here we are expecting to see legal challenges. All right, we got a couple key primaries to update you on as we march steadily toward November. In New York State Tuesday, Democrat Pat Ryan won a hotly contested special election, beating Republican Mark Molinaro for a House seat in the 19th district. That is in the Hudson Valley. Ryan campaigned heavily on abortion rights, and of course, that Supreme Court decision is the first competitive congressional race since the court overturned Roe v. Wade. One political expert called it a bellwether for the national mood. Voters chose Obama in 2012, then flipped to Trump in 2016, then narrowly voted for Biden in 2020. So bottom line here, Democrats say Ryan's win gives them reason for optimism for the midterms. And in Florida, Congressman Charlie Crist cruised to a primary win for the Democrats' governor nomination. He's going to take on the incumbent Republican Ron DeSantis. Crist was, by the way, once the Republican governor of Florida before he switched parties. He is expected to face an uphill battle. Meanwhile, Congresswoman Val Demings sees the Democratic nomination. She's going to be challenging GOP Senator Marco Rubio. That is expected to be an extremely close race with lots of money and national attention pouring in. NBC News will have an extensive primary wrap-up tonight on Nightly at 5:30. Election day, by the way, just 11 weeks from yesterday. And as ad money pours in and campaigns heat up, a top Republican is now in town stumping for 4 local candidates. Let's bring in Evan Watson in Tigard. Evan, good to see you. There is arguably no bigger name for the GOP than House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, because he would likely become House Speaker if the Republicans take Congress in November.
Yes, that's exactly right. Today in Tigard, Congressman Cliff Benson and 3 other Republican congressional candidates sat on either side of McCarthy as they discussed crime and public safety. But it was McCarthy's visit here to Oregon, an endorsement of these candidates, that Republicans hope will make the difference come November.
Everybody wants to feel safe, and you cannot have law and order without order.
Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, the top Republican in the U.S. House, rising crime rates in a talk with Oregon Republican leaders Wednesday. But his visit also showed that Republicans nationally are focusing on Oregon congressional races.
I think what you should take from me being here is that we're serious. These races can be won. That this can be part of a new movement to send a new direction across this country. These are the leaders that can help make that happen.
KGW political analyst Lynn Bergstein says it's unusual for national Republican leaders to look to Oregon for votes. But the redistricting of the congressional map creates opportunities.
Now we've got 6. The districts have been redrawn, and there's a lot of kind of like flux in the political scene. So there's a possibility the Republicans think that maybe an additional seat or 2 might be up.
Republican candidate Alex Skarlatos is looking to replace retiring Democrat Peter DeFazio in the 4th District. In District 5, Lori Chavez DeReamer is facing Democrat Jamie McLeod Skinner, who defeated incumbent Kurt Schrader in the primary.
It's important for all Oregonians, Republicans and Democrats, to see the focus is here, the attention's here. If somebody's going to come out, Leader McCarthy's going to come out here and focus on these races. I mean, we're a top-tier race.
Plus, Republican Mike Erickson hopes to win in the newly created 6th District.
If you're a candidate like a Republican in the 4th, 5th, and 6th District, it's a smart move for you in August to be seen to be closely allied with the person who might just be the next Speaker of the House.
Erickson echoed talking points from the discussion, including crime spreading from larger cities to suburbs and problems hiring and retaining law enforcement officers.
We need to fund the police, pass legislation that will help the police do the job, not make it harder.
McCarthy frequently redirected the conversation to the narrative of defunding police and why he believes that created problems. Bergstein says now Republicans will hope McCarthy's visit helps propel congressional candidates in their individual races before November.
Well, somewhere in the when they're away from the cameras, McCarthy's going to say to these folks, "I've given you a boost. Now let's see what you can do." They're not going to come back and help an Oregon district where the candidate isn't outraising their opponent, isn't making moves. The polls aren't showing some sort of traction.
McCarthy and a lot of the other Republican candidates and political leaders here today criticized Portland and crime in Portland during this discussion, but no representative from Portland or Multnomah County was here for this talk. In Tigard, Evan Watson, KGW News.
And speaking of a key election issue, Evan, we are awaiting a ruling on the Biden administration's most aggressive challenge so far to new laws restricting abortion. Idaho's near total ban set to take effect tomorrow unless a federal judge steps in to block it. And in both neighboring Washington and Oregon, abortion rights advocates are preparing for both a huge influx in patients and the potential consequences. Christelle Kumwe with the story.
Reproductive rights leaders gathered in downtown Portland Wednesday in support of abortion access.
Abortion is health care.
And to decry Idaho's abortion law.
The ban is devastating and cruel.
Idaho's near total ban on abortion is set to take effect on Thursday. Under the law, anyone in the state who provides or tries to provide an abortion could get their medical license suspended, be charged with a felony, and could face up to 5 years in prison.
And even though abortion is legal and in statute here in Oregon, we cannot sit back. We must help our neighbors in other states.
Democratic candidate for Oregon Governor Tina Kotek joined the advocates at the press conference. She says the ban in Idaho will impact people who live in eastern Oregon close to the Idaho border.
And the impacts are immense.
Planned Parenthood Advocates of Oregon anticipates a 234% increase in out-of-state patients coming to Oregon if the ban goes into effect.
We also know that people coming in mean that people here in Oregon might be facing longer wait times, or that other essential and critical reproductive health care like family planning, well women's visits, pap smears might also face a little bit of pressing time because of the surge in patients.
Executive Director Ann Doe says they welcome and plan to help anyone in need of care, but Oregon's healthcare infrastructure is not ready to meet that demand.